Thank you everybody for tuning in, whoever is watching, listening. This is Thad Cox. Tad, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hello. Thank you, Daniel, for having me on. So I've been in the creative industry probably about 20 years, and I'm a big fan of, well, creative thinking. So trying to think differently and use that creativity to help me and my clients. I've done a lot of things in my career, but it all kind of feeds in. So we can always cover that a bit later. But yeah, just happy to be here.
Thank you. We'll get into everything. First, okay, so if you were a fruit, what would you be? And then not like the fruit that you'd choose, like as in what tastes the best or your favorite, but the life of a fruit, what would you want to live?
God, this is, well, I'm totally stumped by that. It's very bizarre. Typically, I should probably say I'm an apple because my Cox is Apple because that's my surname. But I don't know. It's a really, and so the second one, what fruit would I be? Quite a lot to pull together because there's the analogy of like me and then the fruit, and then you're looking at this. So I would probably say, I'm going to say just, well, it's not really random. God, this is a really interesting intro, isn't it? Because I just have. Okay, so I would say like I'm a bald pineapple because I've had my leaves cut off. I've got like quite a rough exterior, and despite looking quite average, I'm actually quite sweet. So there you
I
go.
like
How's that as a
that a
pineapple?
lot.
So
That's a
that's
really
as
good
that's as good
one.
as you can get. It really, do you know, made me realize I don't eat enough fruit. As in, like my knowledge of fruit is fairly basic because there's the only I couldn't think of anything weird or unusual apart from like things like dragon fruit. But yeah, hopefully that'll do.
Honestly, I don't like dragon fruit. Like it tastes. I
It's
wish I
really
did.
crap, isn't it? It looks amazing, but it's just really
No.
underwhelming. Yeah. Yes, yeah,
That's a good
they're pretty
answer
rubbish.
though.
Okay,
I've
cool.
heard
Yeah,
like a couple others that were decent. One of my friends was like, I'd be a grape because you could turn into wine. You're
that
living in
looks
a
quite nice.
vineyard. Multiple lives.
Yeah, well, okay, well, if you're to continue with the pineapple theme, if we're going to do that, this is purely coincidental. But I've told you before about. Do you know the history of pineapples?
I don't.
Oh, so this is quite interesting. So, like years ago, apples were really, really rare. And the only people that could have them or could afford them were sort of like royalty or really rich people. And they cost, I think, in today's money, around like £8,500, which is probably around like $10,000 to $12,000 for one pineapple, because they were so hard to get. So people like the King of Spain would ask, they would send people out to get him pineapples. They'd bring them back. I think it was maybe to England, but I think they had to bring them back to England, but because it's colder here, they wouldn't survive. So it was very, very difficult to get a pineapple. So if you brought one back, it was such a big deal that you would have a party to invite people round and say, check out my pineapple, because it was such an oddity. And if you couldn't afford a pineapple, you could pay to rent one. So people who weren't quite rich enough could rent a pineapple for a party. It was that much of a novelty. And if you look at the architect, now there is another rumor, which is sailors would bring pineapples back and put them in the window. Their wives would put them in the window. And what that would symbolize to their lovers was like, my husband is home, so don't come knocking. So the husbands were like, a pineapple in the window deters people from basically chatting up my wife. And then you can see throughout architecture, particularly in this country, there are pineapples everywhere. But like when you see, you'll see them built into the facade of buildings. And we actually have in our hotel in Cornwall, we have two pineapples either side of our gate post of our courtyard. So that's the history of pineapples. They're that rare and that special. And then the reason why they sort of lost all their value is because I think in France they invented the greenhouse, which meant that you could grow pineapples anywhere because you could create the hot environment that they grew in. And that's why pineapples now are probably about $1 or £1.
That's
So they
crazy.
went
Why
from
do you
being like
know
$10,000, really rare and special, to like nothing. The reason why I say it, and this is probably relevant to what we're talking about, there'll be things in your career which are like a figurative pineapple. So it's like it's experience you can get that's really hard for other people to get. But when you get it, it's super valuable. An example might be if I was doing, if I was selling social media and it was like, right, can I charge more for social media? The answer would be like, maybe I could save enough money to go and shadow Gary Vaynerchuk for 3 months and just absorb everything he does about social media. And then because most people work a 9 to 5, they haven't got the freedom to go and do that. But if I've managed to work out my calendar, I've saved the money, I'm going to work for Gary for free for 3 months just to learn. I'm going to make loads of notes. I'm going to network and get to know everyone. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to put all that knowledge into a course, a book, and a workshop. And because I've acquired the knowledge, I can now, if I was charging, let's say, £100 a ticket for a day workshop on social media, I've now can charge £1,000 a day because the knowledge I'm bringing to that workshop is so special and so rare because it's direct from Gary Vee. Nobody else will have access unless you want to book the man himself. So now I can 10x my price because I've acquired the knowledge. So I've gone and got what is the social media equivalent of a pineapple and brought it back. And now
Yeah.
I'm leveraging it. So
I feel like
it's
knowledge
random.
is a really underrated power. I think, okay, so to intro everybody, I was first starting out in the industry and then I was networking a bunch and I saw Tad's post on LinkedIn from somebody and I reached out and it was kind of a coincidence, but yeah, we've been chatting for like a good year.
Was it
But
on
I
the
think
talk to a creative director thing? I think that was it, wasn't it?
I talked to a creative
Yeah.
director on the best sites.
Yeah, it's really like I said, I'm on there.
Yeah, do you still do it?
Yeah, I'm on there. Like people are always welcome to book time.
Yeah. So, how did you get started in advertising, creative work? Yeah. And like what got you started in
Yeah.
it?
So I was very big into fine arts, like at school. So I did art and history of art, and I thought I was going to do fine art or history of art at university. Switched to do a foundation in sort of graphic design kind of thing, and all of it, and pivoted and went to Kingston University to do a degree in graphic design. About halfway through, I kind of fell in love with advertising and realized that as much as I like design, I haven't got the patience for it and I like the creativity. So I was very much like, I want to pursue the thinking and the ideas more than just doing purely design work, if you know what I mean. Because it was clear, like, I'll be honest, I wasn't the best in the course. There were some people who were really good. So you're kind of very much aware that if I follow this path, I'm going to end up at best. It's a very hard degree to get on. Don't get me wrong. It's like what very good course, but I wasn't the best at it. So I was like, look, I really like advertising. So I punted pretty much my third year to try and build an advertising portfolio. And that was quite risky because nobody at the time could really teach you what you needed to get into advertising. So when I left Kingston, I went for an interview at Mother. I managed to get an interview and I was like super excited because I thought, well, most people seem to like the work. I'm sure they'll be interested. And when they looked at it, the guy was great. He goes, look, it's lovely. It looks very nice, but it's not advertising. That there's no ideas here. This is just nice looking things. And if anything, you've probably imitated stuff that's already out there. So it's not particularly interesting. So I realized that I'd totally punted my degree to go all in to try and get a job in an industry that I didn't understand. I had to pretty much start over. And the first thing I realized was you have to become a team. So I teamed up with my best mate from school, and he was doing a degree in English at De Montfort. So he became a copywriter and I became the art director. And we basically tried to learn how advertising works while on the job. So basically doing placements and all of that while learning. And then while we were there, we worked at Lear Burnett and Saatchi's. We eventually got a job.
Was there like a direct like major in your school that was like that, or was it more of like a program where you're like learning
No,
about it?
it was like I said, Kingston was very specialized in like graphic design. It was particularly like editorial graphic design. I think it was like not the best in the world, but it was pretty like the odds of getting in were like, I think 84-1. Like it's very hard to get in. So it was a really good course, but it was very, very, very detailed with the typography and everything. And I just didn't have the patience for it. So we learned how to get into advertising just purely from like you talking to me. It's like you find kind people who are patient enough to help you and you just learn through iteration and mistakes. And I did that probably for about 10 years. My mate, he stayed in it. He won a Cannes Grand Prix Titanium Lion. So I'm so happy for him because he's worked so hard. It was for the DoorDash All the Ads campaign, I think Super Bowl campaign, maybe a year ago. He did that. He was working at Wine and Kennedy in Portland. Like he moved from London over there with Kristen. They're both friends from Lear Burnett, and he's done amazingly well. So I'm super happy for him. So like he is advertising royalty. I'm not. I kind of I left probably about 10 years in, and at the time I was getting really into football coaching. So I thought I was going to be doing that professionally as a career. I'd done my coaching badges through the London FA, but then I had to move to Cornwall because we have a family hotel and my parents were struggling with running that. So I moved with my family down to Cornwall and we ran that. And at the time, I think it had a Michelin starred restaurant. And I ran that basically for about 12 years while the kids were growing up, and I was sort of freelancing while doing work on reception and like balancing football coaching, reception, and
You
still
had a
doing
Michelin
creative work.
star restaurant in there?
Yeah, we had one in Cornwall years ago. It was one of the first ones in Cornwall, sort of thing. So I saw very hands-on, like because we're the owners, so you're very aware of everything that goes into chasing that, and it's all down to the talent of the chef, and it's an astonishing achievement. It's exhausting, but it was kind of so it was really good to see that level of hospitality, and the hotel was very well regarded. It was like a little boutique hotel, so that again was really good experience learning how to manage that and build a culture and run a business. And then I freelanced while I was doing that. And then I think we ran that for about sort of 10, 12 years. And we decided to change and we converted it into 3 Airbnb, like holiday let properties. And we sold the restaurant and converted that into a holiday property. And so I run that now. And that enabled me to start my own small branding studio, which is kind of what I'm doing. So now I get to kind of do client work all the time, which I really like. And so that's what I've been doing since. And now I'm kind of trying to stay what's the word, focused and trying to do one thing, but I have lots of things. I do the creative heist as well, which I really like, and that's kind of what I spend most of my time doing.
That's amazing. Yeah. Was it just the creative heist? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the creative heist is it's basically pitching for clients but through the lens of a Hollywood heist movie. So I know
Ooh.
from working advertising, pitching is really arduous and really tough because nobody likes to do it. You have to do it on the weekends and evenings, and it's really tough. And I always felt that there was another way of doing it. What I wanted to do. I think I've got the rain going and you've got the trains going, so this is going to be
Rain and
an
train.
interesting day.
Wait, actually, I could echo cancellation because wait, I think it's on. That's the best it could do.
So it should be fine. But it
Yeah.
sounds like rain and thunder. But sorry. So basically, the whole point was I wanted to make pitching fun. And I remember, like in advertising, a lot of it would be there'd be a certain freedom. Like you'd have an idea and you go, wouldn't it be cool to share that? And you'd often have lots of ideas that you probably wouldn't share for whatever reason. And I remember it was kind of like when I used to win pitches, it was because I just was in love with the idea. I was really excited about the idea that energy came across. And so I was like, well, how can we do this where it's more fun? And I was talking to a couple of friends about this. And there's a movie called Air with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. And it's about the story of how Nike signed Michael Jordan all those years ago before they
I've
were
never
the
seen
Nike of
it.
today. It's really good, but it's like a business heist. It's a good movie. So the way the heist works, the creative heist, is like a Hollywood heist movie. So you have your target, which is who you want to go after. Then you need to find an inside man who's going to help get you into the target. Then you build your Trojan horse, which is kind of the thing that gets their attention. And within the Trojan horse is like the idea and the pitch. And then it's all about, well, if I want to build this to impress someone, do I need to build a crew of people to help me? And then you using the inside person, you basically they coordinate the meeting, you set up the meeting, and then you pitch it. And you often like if you don't win the business, you make such a good impression that the client often comes back to you because you change how they perceive you, and people don't normally get approached with ideas just with the sort of freedom of like we'd love to work together and we've got a cool idea, we'd love to talk about it. And for me, I've been doing it a while now, and I'm at the stage where I'm just sending out ideas I'm having to people, and the response has been really good. And it's a case of I'm creating opportunities for myself and my clients because I'm just sharing the stupid ideas I come up with. But they're all, I say stupid, they've got to be linked to a kind of a strategic thinking, but that all helps. So now I do that for myself and I do it for clients as well.
That is so exciting. I think that's the most inspiring part about the entire industry is just like the love of ideas and getting to share that with other people and inspire their thinking to something else. But it's cool how much you talk about pitching your work, and I think it's one of the most like important skills in the business, just being able to have conviction in your ideas and your thought processes. And I think even
Selling it
advertising,
is
yeah, selling yourself, selling your ideas. But
I remember that was probably one of the mistakes that we made early on. I would say was it's the time you allocate to come, pardon me, the time you allocate to refining the idea and getting it ready versus the time you allocate to selling it. And I think sometimes we spent too long on the idea rather than selling it. So I think if you can hit that sweet spot of like, here's an idea, how can I communicate it really quickly so that if anything, it's not quite finished? Because if it's too finished, there's nothing for the person you're presenting it to contribute. So you almost
Hmm.
want it to be half finished so they can go, oh, I like it. What about if we did this? And you go, oh, yeah, that's great. What about that? And then they actually build the idea with you and then they have
Hmm.
some ownership of it. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, true. I remember reading about there's we talked about this. There's so many psychology books that are interesting, and I remember one. It was talking. I think it might have been Influence, the book, if you've heard of it.
Oh, Robert Cialdini, is that the one?
I believe so. Like the type is like that. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he was talking about how you plant an idea in somebody's head, and that's a valuable aspect of just like there's so many psychological principles that go in that you have to consider when you're in this industry. When I was in art therapy co-major, I took a bunch of psych classes, and it would talk about how you always want possession of your ideas, like the value of feeling important and heard and seen and special. But like once you can like recognize the fact that you want that, let go and be the guy who funds the building without putting his name on the building. You know what I'm saying? And so that goes for ideas too. You could have the best idea ever, but you have to be the person to plant it in other people's heads if you want it to them to be excited about it. Also, let go of your ego and be a part of a team. So much of the time we want everything to be ours. It just comes so full circle, you know. It's interesting.
Oh, yes, I think no, you're right. It's this balance of you have to care enormously about it to fight for it, but also not at all. As in, you can give
Hmm.
it up and start over, or someone else can join in, and you're not possessive. I would always say the main thing is like if you're able to, the goal would be that you're having so many ideas that you're just the frequency of the way you think and the way you can turn your thinking into something practical is what you're trying to hone. I mean, I remember I probably told you this before. Have you heard of that study they did with these clay pots to see how to make the perfect clay pot? Did you know about this?
No, that's cool.
So
Tell me more.
it's really interesting. So I don't know what degree it was. I guess it's a pottery degree, but they split the class into two, and they said, right, for this term, the first group, you're going to focus on making the best possible clay pot, but you're just going to make like one. So like your energy is going to go into like as fewest as possible. And then at the end of the term, we're going to judge the quality of your craftsmanship and the clay pot. The second group, you're going to make as many as possible. So you're going to make hundreds over the term. And then at the end, you're going to pick your best one and we're going to judge it. And it turns out that the group that had done the repetition of quickly making lots and lots and lots of pots did far
Yeah.
better. Yeah, I always remember that because you kind of go, it's the same thing as you just said. Like you can be working on an idea for a long time, but you have to plant the seed in someone else. Otherwise, they'll never see it as their own, so they won't get excited about it. And it's actually better to be the person that can go, what about this? Or like, what about that? And who isn't afraid to share the idea. The more you have, the more you tune that lens of spotting opportunity everywhere because someone will say something and it will spark an idea. And I think the fear of being judged on your idea, your ego, is what holds people back. And so with the creative heist, a lot of it is people who always say I'm not creative. I'm looking to create that atmosphere in the room where no one has to have the big idea. You might say something which sparks it in someone else, but between us, we will find a way in. And generally, everyone is always really excited. I've got on video, it's quite funny. The last one I did a workshop, and the lady who was running it, it clicked for her. And she was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is effing amazing. She got really excited. It was really funny. But it was a lot of it was I want her to be happy and I want her to contribute. Like I want to facilitate that. So for
Mhm.
me, it's really liberating. And when you're nice to people with their creativity, they'll often go, yeah, people, I used to be creative, but people told me I wasn't, so I stopped. An example of this is I'm a member of BNI and the group I'm in, they were celebrating their birthday and they were 30 years old or something. I've only been there less than a year, but that was the idea. And the guy running it is an accountant. So he's, as you would imagine, quite safe and sort of serious, not really jokey. And the way it works in BNI is everyone has a 1 minute talk every week. So when you're talking, it flashes up on the screen a photo of you, your logo, and then you give your business talk. And he said, what about, because we're 30 years old, we have photos of what the people who are the members were doing 30 years ago. And I go, that's brilliant. That's such a clever idea. That's really fun. Everyone will enjoy it. And he was like,
Mm-hmm.
really? I go, yeah, I love it. Like, you just ask everyone for a photo in 1997 or whatever. It'll be really funny. So there was one guy who wasn't even born then. So he had a picture of his parents on their wedding day. There's loads of humor and it's really charming. But he had that idea and it was good. And I wanted to celebrate that and go, yes, I love it. And because
Mm-hmm.
he knows I like creativity, he was like, really? I was like, yeah, please. Like, you've nailed it. And I would remind him, that's great. I love it. And he was really happy. And that's when he would say, I used to be the creative one at my company, but I just haven't done this for ages. So I think that's where I want to get to, where you support creativity in other people and encourage them. Because, like I said, you don't have to have the big idea. You might say something that gives it to someone else and they'll give it back to you.
Especially just inspiring other people to have confidence in their self and their creativity is important. A lot of people nowadays, the creative industry, it's diminishing a little bit with the work of, AI and the fact of like STEM and all that. And, science is great. But I think also there's so much creativity in kids that should be encouraged as well. That kind of reminds me of this book I'm reading. Well, I think you'd enjoy it. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow.
It was at Daniel Kahneman.
I believe so. Throughout the book, gives a lot of studies of like examples because he thinks that it's best to teach with providing the examples that describe the theories rather than just spurring off the information. And he was just like giving a talk and like a lecture to a bunch of like maybe it was like Air Force men, like, and he's like Israeli, so I think it was like their military.
Yeah.
And he was telling them that the principle of encouragement to other people and giving positive feedback is better than lecturing them and giving them hard hit negativity. And one of
Yeah.
the officers was like, no, that's not true. And he gives a lot of good insights on the way your mind works and just your judgments towards other people and perceptions of like situations. The officer thinks that just because of the examples of like people who were like doing better after he gave them like reprimanding like instruction, I guess, like scolding them, they started to do better. And he says he was wrong because if you're gonna judge people, if you're reprimanding them, they're already low. No matter what you're doing, they're gonna end up being better because they're already low. Then if they're like high on like they're doing great and you're like I think that they're gonna get lower, something like that. I'm not explaining it like him, but like, what if we did talk about creativity in a way that's not, there's a perfect way to draw a straight line. Now, there is no right or wrong way, there's just a way. And there's gonna be somebody who's inspired by your ideas in some sort, so you might as well share them, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. It is it's having the confidence to share it, and you've got to be around people that won't judge you or who will be negative about what you're saying, which is really difficult. But I think if you can overcome that or not care, one thing that was interesting, there's a podcast I listened to, and it's called The Rest Is Entertainment, and they were interviewing Chris Columbus, the director who did Home Alone and lots of, I think he did the first three Harry Potter movies, and he talks about have you seen the film Gremlins?
No, I haven't. Is it good?
It's an 80s sort of classic movie, but he wrote Gremlins, and he said that um, when he wrote that, he got a call saying, "Oh, look, Steven Spielberg loves your script. He wants to come in for a meeting." And he said that was amazing. But what his agent didn't tell him is that about 49 out of 50 people had showed it to, had rejected it, and said they don't like it. But it just so happened, as Steven Spielberg was leaving the office, it was the top script on a pile. And he looked at the cover and it said Gremlin. So he took it home to read. And he goes, I really like it. Let's make it. But he said, what's so great about agents is They don't tell you about all the times you're rejected, because if we had to present the script ourselves, we would just burn it after 3 rejections. The agent doesn't really care. So they will just continually keep shipping it and just sending it until they get a yes. And that often is true of even J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter. I think she was rejected a lot of times. With the Creative Heist, the system I've got at the moment is I'm more interested in getting the idea from my head into a deck, which is more like a treatment, and
Mm-hmm.
sending it. And I've got my VA. I just said, look, she's found me like a list of 50 people. I'm like, just send it to all of them. I don't want to hear until one of them says yes. And that's the system that we're going to be doing. And I've completely freed myself of judgment, because as you get older, you go, why am I sitting on an idea that is doing nothing? I've guaranteed nothing will happen if I don't share it.
Yeah.
That's guaranteed. So it's going to fail if you don't share it, because you're failing it. James Clear has a newsletter, and he just said, you are manifesting or making things luckier just by sharing them. As in, most people might go, it's okay, but if the right person sees it and loves it, you never know where that might end up. That's only because you shared it. So once we can overcome that in whatever way, the better, because we just get better and quicker and stronger. You shared that really nice project you did for that. Was it like the diner and the record? Like,
Yeah.
it's really great. And like, you've got the
Yeah.
confidence to share it. And I remember it. And I was going to say, wouldn't it be cool if they had like a sort of radio, or like you could do like a diner radio channel, which would be quite cool as well, like, because it's like a record shop. All
Oh,
of that.
that's cool.
Have you like, because so, but the thing is, I'm thinking of like, that would be great if you did like a radio show, or like you could do a Spotify playlist, and you could expand the idea out and all this. But for me, like the fact you shared it, and you were talking about AI being quite tricky and lots of repetition, I think for me that the bravery of sharing that is other people will see what you're like and what you're trying to do. And that's the benefit of sharing it. It's not to get it bought or sold. It's just to have the ability to let people know this is what I'm working on and how I think. So for me, with the Creative High stuff, the ideas, like here's one I shared recently. I had this idea for, like an air ambulance charity, like a
Mm-hmm.
flying helicopter charity. So the idea was over here, this came out of a conversation with someone who worked them, and it was, he wanted to raise awareness to raise money, but it's quite hard to do. The helicopters are expensive. They can't kind of waste them doing publicity stunts and flying around. And over here on a soccer pitch, they have a centre circle, and the centre circle is about the size of a helipad. It's probably a bit smaller, but I said, why can't you just paint an H on the centre circle? Like, it doesn't disrupt the game. Everyone in the stadium sees it. Everyone who watches the replays see it. You don't need the helicopter, because everyone knows what an H in a circle represents. So it's super efficient, super cheap to do, and you could do it anywhere in the world. So I was like, why don't I present that to helicopter charities? Because they would all benefit from knowing it. And all I need is one to go, we're going to make this happen. We're partnered with this number of football clubs. They've all agreed to have temporary white paint put on their centre circle. The deck in itself is an excuse. That's my Trojan horse. The idea is the Trojan horse to get their attention, to basically say, this is what I love doing. I think differently. I'd love to work with you because I have lots of ideas like this. And then eventually people will come back and say, I like the way you think. Can you come into my company and can we pay you to come up with stuff? Which is effectively what I did in an ad agency. Now I'm doing it on my own or with a couple of friends. And so that's where I'm trying to get to. If I don't even need them to buy the idea or to even like it, it's just got to catch their attention and be a bit different.
Yeah. You're
And
pretty
that's what you're
amazing.
doing.
I think it's so cool that you pivoted from industry to hospitality to now back. Was it hard
It's
to
probably
do?
just ADHD, Daniel. I think it's
I
probably just
feel that too.
attracted. So I've had to monetize it along the way. So it's like, it's not, none of it was planned and none of it was deliberate. But yeah, so like I think what you're doing is great. Like, sharing your work is hard because people are going to be judgy. But that just, it's, I've realized that two things happen, is like, either that's them talking about themselves to themselves, they're not talking to you, or when people criticize, I think it's kind of caring in disguise, because you only criticize something because you're expecting more. If you didn't care, you would ignore it. So I do think there's this misdirected anger often online. It's worth just remembering that, but more importantly, just sharing, because you never know who's going to spot it. And when they do, and you get that opportunity, you've earned it. And that's what's quite exciting. I used to feel it was really challenging for me because TV ads aren't as popular, and I used to love TV advertising. Like I remember you also posted all these old McDonald ads, and there's loads of great ads in the past, but people don't really watch TV as much now. You can skip it or block the ads, or so it's harder to get people to pay attention. It's hard though, isn't it? But when you see ads nowadays, generally you go, God, these are bad. They're dumbed down. They're not
Yeah.
funny. There's no twist. There's nothing in it that's interesting. And you kind of go, it's been years since we had good, funny ads. So for me, I used to kind of think, isn't it sad that people don't do that? But I also, on the flip side, I would say that there's more opportunity because you have the mediums change. It's like radio isn't as popular, but podcasting has emerged. Then you've got like social media amplifies an idea. So really, all we would have done in the agency would have had a cool idea, and then we would have just talked about it or shown it on TV. Now you have the ability to go, well, modern TV is just TikTok. So how does that idea translate in the world of TikTok? And if it doesn't, it's not strong enough. But if it does, you never know what could go viral. So I've had to reframe how I perceive social media. I think there's a lot of bad things about it. Don't get me wrong, but I think when I see some brand activations, I go, that's really smart. That's really interesting. I love how it's so multi-layered. It's an experience. It's a campaign. They're working with influencers. They've got product. It's really fascinating to me. So, but I think it's really challenging. People's attentions are broken. And it's hard to keep them focused.
How can we get them to stop scrolling for 2 seconds to focus? I'm a designer, but do I hate my phone? Yes. But like, where would I be? Like, would I be gluing type onto pages and images?
I'm telling you, as someone who lived through the 90s, Daniel, it's being romanticized by people that did. Like, my son was going on about because he's about to go to uni. And I was like, if you want to live in the 90s, mate, turn your phone off, unplug your computer, basically lock it all away. And then, like, you're not allowed to watch. You have to watch whatever channels are on and then just go outside. And, like, that's it. As in, you
Yeah.
can't really talk to anyone, you can't do anything. So it's not that it was great or bad. It's just that I think in a response to the, like you said, the constant hooking for attention and the clickbait and the lies, and you're doing it wrong, and this, it's very, very noisy, and you just want a bit of peace, and you want actually a bit of thinking time and real relationship. I think the danger would be to romanticize the 90s, because when I lived through it, it was really unremarkable. The fashion, the music was distinctly like, what, this is really boring. The 80s were far cooler. That's always the way it is. You look back beyond and think it was always better. It's very difficult, but I think, yes, there is a point of, it was great that, I don't know, I want to say it's great that people weren't so distracted, but they were equally just as bored or useless. Like, people haven't changed that much. Like, it's just this thing of like, you weren't doing anything meaningful or poignant. You were just watching TV for hours or just playing football, or just, like, people weren't sort of, it wasn't like the highlights I see are like like when you watch it like a film from that era. It's like a weird dream of like, I lived it and that wasn't what it was. Our memories
Yeah.
distort the past. So it's
It's
hard, but it's like,
romanticized.
yeah, I heard something that your brain doesn't remember the past accurately. It draws information in comparison to what you're doing today to teach you a lesson or for you to reflect on. So you're constantly remembering something which isn't accurate anymore. But I just remember like the 90s it's still the same old stuff. You're still worrying about stuff that isn't important. How do you and all your friends, what do you feel about things like, I don't want to get, what I would say is I don't want to go on about AI too much. I feel that because you're really quite ahead of the people I've met of your age, as far as you're quite smart and switched on, you show a lot of interest outside of your industry, and you're clearly interested in psychology and design and all these things, and you're fueling your brain. And I think that AI is just a tool, if you know what I mean. I know people are kind of scared of it, but I don't see stuff often beyond what is a really efficient product demo, as in like the real professionals are using AI probably in a way that we don't even notice. But for most people, as you said, it feels very copy what's working, or everyone does the same thing and the trend just burns out. And it feels quite unimaginative.
Yeah, thank you. First off, I appreciate it. I'm really not a fan of negativity, and I think that a lot of times pessimism is common when new things are popping up. Like, well, shoot, like this is screwing everything up. But really, change is gonna happen. People thought back in the day when computers came out the same thing. What's gonna happen? I mean, there's an entire job of typewriters. I mean, jobs change, things change. The question is, how do we adapt and how do we evolve and how do we reframe our brain? And I think it's just a matter of reframing your perspective. And we have such power over that. We just have to take the autonomy to control our thoughts and the way we see things and get excited. I was using it for work and I was just like, actually, this is kind of awesome. I'm generating a banana right now, and this
Yeah.
banana has never existed ever. And I one time, I think my first real exposure to it was I was at my internship at Latitude, not this summer, last summer in Minneapolis. Great agency. I think I was generating with Midjourney, actually insane. But then when
Yeah.
I started to use it for like this other side project with like, Simulate Chicken, and I was generating a chicken purse, like I talked to it for hours. Crazy. So I don't know. Who knows what's gonna happen in like 5, 10 years, but scary. But I think the excitement of ideas is what you have to focus on because design is something that I love, but also it's not something that's gonna be seen in the same regard in 5 years, I don't think. I mean, what do you feel about it?
Yeah. When I gave a talk to Bucks Uni over here, I didn't want people to be scared by it. Or there's so much fear mongering in the content, like grift, which is really unhelpful. Because if you're not careful, you will be fed a lot of doomsday predictions and a lot of negativity. And I don't want young people to be affected by that because they've got enough to deal with. And I don't think a lot of it's true. I think a lot of it is sensational. It's like gossip. It gets your attention, but it's not actually meaningful. The way I would describe it, this is a really strange one, but I think it helps people. Have I told you like the mountain climbing analogy that I use to describe what the
I
internet
think
is?
you have.
But I was trying to think of like what is the internet in my an algorithm is like. I imagine two people, me and a friend, are climbing a mountain. We're both deciding what to do, and we both get 20 meters up. And I listen across because someone's shouting at me, and they go, "You're doing it wrong. You need to do my way." So I climb back down. He doesn't hear it. He keeps climbing. So I climb back down. I move across, and I climb up 20 meters again. And I hear someone else's voice, and they're saying, "That's the old way. This is the new way." I was like, okay, I don't want to do it the new way. So I climb back down again. I move across. I climb back up to 20 meters again. And I hear another voice going, "No, no, I've got a better way. This is the way." And you know what? I can't keep doing this because I look ahead of me and my friend is almost 80 meters up and he's just ignored all the noise. So I just decide I'm going to catch up with him. So as I climb past, I get a further 20 meters up and I look down because I'm like, it's so quiet up here. There's no one else up here. And I look down below me, and all I can see is a load of gurus shouting down at people at the base of the mountain, telling them they're doing it wrong. And what you realize is if you just keep going, you will learn more from the climb than you ever will from other people because it's a feedback loop of failure, improvement, failure, improvement. That's how we learn. And all the gurus are doing is they're selling to people who've never done it before and they're preying on that insecurity of I might do it wrong or like I might waste time doing it. But they are only 20 meters up themselves. They've never gone further. And once you get past them, you realize that's all they're doing. So for me, a lot of it is like a lot of the content you'll see is by people who have an agenda to sell you something rather than help you. And as I've always said to you, it's the mind of the person who's operating the tool, whether it's a guitar, a paintbrush, a chef's knife, it's their experience and their thinking that will determine what they do with the tool. And at the moment, I feel the same about AI. It's the same as Photoshop, same as anything. And I would always be wary of something that didn't challenge me and did it all for me because if it can do it all for me, it's going to replace me, which is why the cynic in me says that the way Adobe is going with Firefly and Photoshop and everything is just visual. Like it's just you click a button and it just does it. And at some point, I'm going to go, well, if it's if it's turned my years of learning into just one click, it's going to sell that to a client and they're going to go, oh, I can do this. So why are they going to come back to me as a designer or a creative? They're going to come back to me because I think differently. That's the that's the bit we need to get to. As I've said to you, you want to pay attention to the people who are very good at it, so you can stay up to date with like what's happening and what's changing. But fueling your mind and the way you think and having experiences. There's one thing, if you watch like modern films, they don't do very well, or like modern TV shows or content. People get bored of it. I My suspicion is a lot of those are written by people who are writing based on films that they've watched, not life they've lived. And there's a massive difference because one is a visual cliche that everyone is familiar with, but it's boring and familiar. And the other thing is something unique that you've experienced, which is really original. It always reminds me of how Quentin Tarantino would talk about when he wants to write dialogue, he would listen to people having conversations outside. If you want to write a really good argument, listen to two people having an argument. It's the same as when you're trying to get the photos for a shoot, part of it is in the invisible skills you're learning of how to manage people, how to keep the client happy, how to direct it, how to change the setup, how to look at the lenses, how to all of these skills and that decision making is sometimes lost if you're overly reliant on AI. And that experience is what makes it like really cut through. It's like good comedy. Good comedians will hone an idea until everyone will go, oh my God, that's me. But it's universal. And that's where when you get a good movie, it's the same things that really cut through, and people will talk about the same films because they're so original and the thought that was had to make them was original. And
Yeah,
is the thing, that's the big difference.
I agree. Inspiration comes from living. It bounds my mind sometimes because I mean I'm guilty of it, of course, like we're human, you know. But this thing here and we're on it and we're
Yeah, yeah.
scrolling, it's one aspect of culture. People don't realize how influenced we are by simple things we see. And yet who's controlling that, you know? Like people are behind that. You are getting a lot of your facts from the internet.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, like people are, I'll get news from my friends and I'm like, okay, where'd you hear that? They're like, TikTok. Peer reviewed for sure. We're watching these shows like Love Island. Have you heard of this? There's the UK version.
I watched Love Island over here with my daughter. Like that's quite good
You
fun
know?
because we're both kind of taking the piss out of it. I really like it because it's good to spend time with her doing that, but also we are mocking most of it because it's quite funny.
It is quite funny. There's a whole phenomenon here. After work, there it goes on for like a couple hours, and it was like every day. And it's a good show, but it's also like the time you take to watch that, just like being online, like for work, then online for a show. And then don't you want to like go outside and just like touch some grass and talk to people and like it gives you the stories and the inspiration. I think like we're in the business of telling stories, right?
It's the thing of I found something. I mean, I do agree. Don't get me wrong. I like Love Island, but I know it's garbage. But there is one thing that really interested me was there was an interview, I think it was on the Modern Wisdom podcast, and the lady was talking about how the phones have made us very distractible. So, you know, in the movie Up with the
Mm-hmm.
balloons and the house, you know how the dogs, whenever someone says squirrel, they all get completely distracted and stare off into the distance.
Mm-hmm.
She was saying that that's what we've become. So, when you're constantly sort of scrolling, your brain struggles to concentrate on something, and so you're easily distracted. And she said what happens is if you have an experience like so through your phone you only engage two of your senses, sight and sound. But if you're like at a concert, you engage all of it. There's the sight, the sound, the smell, the touch, everything is there, the taste. You can like, it's very immersive. But what can happen is if someone interrupts you as you're trying to create this memory, the proteins in your brain needed to retain the memory to make it a core memory aren't formed because they're interrupted and they stop forming and then you forget it. And when we're being creative, she said, what you go back to be creative is your memories. But if you don't have any core memories because you're constantly distracted, that means you can't be original. So what do people do? They copy what's working, which is why we get so many trends that burn out so fast. So when you go and watch fireworks, for example, and you take your phone out to watch the fireworks, just doing that robs you of the moment because you won't go and watch the video back. Nobody does. But also, that doing the filming of it, you haven't immersed yourself in it. So therefore, you've robbed yourself twice. That's why we can't remember anything we watch, because we're never forming the memories long enough for it to be remembered. If you watch a good film, or you read a good story, or you go and experience something, it will just stay with you because the whole emotional neuroscience that goes on, it floods your brain with chemicals which makes it more memorable. And then every time you remember it, you forge a neural pathway which gets stronger. So there is real neuroscience in being, but you've got to go and have experiences, and you have to immerse yourself fully in them because they're much more hard hitting. And so it's like so original thoughts. I heard this years ago, and I was telling it to my kids. You would have seen Finding Nemo.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where the idea for Finding Nemo came from?
No, but I'm trying to think.
Well, it's interesting. It's what you're saying. So Andrew Stanton was the director, and he had been the director on Monsters Inc. and I think or Toy Story. He'd been involved in those films, so he was working at Pixar, relentlessly making these films. And he says because I was working so hard, he was never at home with his kids. So one day he decided to take his son to the park to give his wife a break. And on the way there, he just was going, no, no, stop that. Don't do that. Don't pick that up. No, no, come here, come back. No, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Come on, don't. And he realized he had become this overly neurotic dad who didn't know how to be a dad. And he could sort of see himself behaving in this weird, over the top way that was ruining the experience for him and his kids. And he's like, oh my God, how have I become this bad? It's because I'm always at work. But that gave him the idea of how can we tell a story about an overly protective father who needs to learn that he's got to let his child grow up. And that's the story of Finding Nemo. So he had the
I never
original
really took
thought.
away that point from Finding Nemo until now. That's a good
Well,
one.
yeah, because the dad is obsessed with protecting him because in the very beginning, the wife or the mum gets killed, doesn't she? And he's got a little
Yeah,
fin.
yeah.
So it's all about, I have to protect him. But that came from his own life experience and being dialed in enough to recognize his own neurotic behavior was ruining it. That's what the dad in Finding Nemo is going to do. He's going to ruin the relationship with his son because he can't let go. But understandably, we get it. It's this tension. And that's part of what I believe is so important is having these real life experiences and thoughts because that unique perspective is what you bring to your work that other people can't bring.
Yeah, it's a spark and having like ideas to share and it doesn't matter if they're stupid, sharing them and seeing what people say. But I think like the most exciting, hold on, I call it train time. You know, it's honestly like the ocean nowadays for me. I just fall asleep to it.
No, well, I live near Heathrow in Windsor, so we have the planes going over all the time, and it's amazing how you just I don't really hear them anymore. So yeah,
Really?
you'll get used to it. Yeah, yeah.
I'm actually going to London on Thursday, first time ever.
Cool.
Or
How
Friday.
long are you over for?
Like 3 days. And it's like a part of this
Amazing.
like trip. Thank you. I'm excited. I wanted to go
Whereabouts
forever.
are you going? What have you got planned for the trip?
So it's a part of this like organization, and I'm going with random people. We're going to Paris, Barcelona, and London. And then, so after
Cool.
3 days, we go to Paris and then Barcelona.
That would be awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
That'd be really cool. You'll learn so much. It'll be great. Like I said, you're doing that thing of it's challenging. The easy thing is to just find an excuse to not go. The hard thing is to book it and then commit. But
Yeah.
because you're doing that, it'll be great. You'll learn that you'll come away with really interesting and unique experiences that will, like I said, it fuels your brain. I'm a big fan of this. My son went to watch. He went to an exhibition, like there's like the band the Gorillas. They've got like this really cool artwork.
Yeah, yeah. They're cool.
There's an exhibition he went to, and he said there were no phones allowed. They had to cover your camera like on your phone, and you weren't meant to have your phones out. And he said it was like a sort of part art exhibition, part theatre. So like the Gorillas characters, you would go and he said there was one who like you would go and sit in his sort of living room, and it stank, and he was in there. And then you'd get out and follow him into a caravan or something. And it was all like this amazing immersive thing. And he wanted to go with friends, but he decided I'm just going to go on my own, and he loved it. He said it's such an amazing thing, and I know that will really inform his thinking for when he starts at uni to do his animation. So I think, yeah,
That's
pushing yourself to do these things is cool.
when does he start uni?
He starts September 21st, so like a few weeks. So he got into
That's
Hertfordshire to
exciting.
do animation and illustration. It's like second in the world behind Caltech. So he's done really
God,
well. We're really pleased.
good for him. That's amazing.
Well, no, and then my daughter, she's going to Southampton to do film production. So they're both leaving at the same time. So it's kind of so yeah, she's looking forward to that as well. So it's all my fault.
Are you like excited to have the like empty nest?
It's just me, my wife, and Biscuit, our dog, really. So that'll be. Don't get me wrong, we're kind of looking because I mean, it's been 20 odd years. Olivia's 18, Milo's 20. So it's like it's been a long time of just sort of raising them. So now we get to have a bit of time to ourselves. And I mean, Biscuit's always being spoiled. So no, it should be good. They'll be back as well. We'll pop and visit. So it'll be good.
That's so
It's funny when you
exciting.
said about Love Island. I find that one of the best things about social media is I send memes to my kids all day long, and I think that's really great. So we have like a shared
Yeah,
sense of humor.
you know what I kind of do love though is I think the comment section's almost better than the video. People are so clever.
Yeah, some of the gifs that pop up and everything, it's amazing. Admittedly, it is a lot of fat dogs. It's really enjoyable to send stupid things to each other. I'm obviously going to miss them, but we're really happy for them, so it'd be good.
That would be so great. It's just a whole nother world to be a parent and like have that happen. But I think it's gonna be exciting too because they're like kind of immersing themselves in your world. So like you could talk about
Oh
your
yeah,
work.
I've already lined up work for them, so I can get them work quite easily. So it's
Oh,
yeah,
there
it'll
you
be good.
go. That's so great. Aw, I want to hear your updates on everything. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. So like I said, a lot of what I said to you, the second portfolio, building your network, all the stuff that we've talked about, as I've said to them to do the same thing.
Yeah, they'll be good. If they're like two, they have something ingrained. Thank you so much for meeting with me. This was really great, and I just
No, not at
appreciate
all.
your
Anytime. It's been really good to chat. I'm genuinely really, really happy for you. It's really great to see you have humility, talent, and ambition, and that's rare. So I'm excited to see how your
time.
career progresses.
You are too
Yeah.
kind. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I
No,
wouldn't be here
you're doing
without you.
everything right.
Do you know where listeners could find you, where they could connect? And I'll definitely drop
Yeah,
resources.
sure. So I'm really crap at social media. I know I will try and improve, but I'm generally you won't find a huge amount on there, but I will try and improve. My daughter's editing my YouTube videos, so that's going to be another thing. I would say you
Oh,
can
that's
email
cool.
me. So there's Thad at thadcox.co.uk. You can email me there. I have a Substack. You can find me on Talk to a Creative Director. I'm launching a course with James from Made by James. And then I'm obviously running the Creative Heist and all that sort of stuff. So I fortunately have got an unusual name. So if you search Thad Cox, there aren't many of us out there. So like on LinkedIn, you can hit me up. I'm always very happy to help people. So yeah, please reach out.
Amazing. Thank you. And I'm sure people are going to be really thankful to have you and just their networks. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you. Okay, well, I'll talk to you soon. Have a good rest of your
All
day.
right.
Happy
You too.
American Labor
Cheers.
Day.
Oh yes, happy American Labor Day. I can have a cheese sandwich. Cheers. Bye.